Hi, this is James Ead, and I'm here on behalf of Roar, episode 11. And we're going to talk about gender dynamics today. But in any case, if there's anything you want to roar about, you can contact us. That's the website below me, airu.tv, or you can write to us at info@airu.tv. And we'll take up any topic that you want us to roar about. So I'm going to add Rick Rosner, my co host. Rick, how are you today?
Good. You?
I'm doing terrific. I'm defying gravity, man. Nothing can bring me down. But
Okay.
it's funny. Oh, we have a guest today too. That I want to add on now, if that's okay with you, Rick.
Sure.
Don Steiney. Hi, Don. And how are you today? Oh,
Oh,
we're
no.
muted. You can't hear you. We cannot hear you. Yep. Still can't hear you, Don.
Bill.
Uh, Donald, let your voice be heard. He's not shy about speaking up and speaking out, so
Okay.
we'll get him. We'll get him on.
Okay. Uh, while we're doing that, I guess we can start. I had
Yeah.
my first thought about gender dynamics is that we are less gendered today than we were, say, 30 years ago, because much of our lives are lived on our keyboards,
Oh,
either on a phone but most, and you're not, you're less, you, you're less in the physical world. You're more in, phone space, and that leads to a certain neutering, which is reflected by the international baby shortage, where uh, all the developed countries have declining birth rates. They By 2050, the only continent that will have a non-declining population will be Africa. If we didn't have immigration, the U.S. population would be in decline. It's growing at the slowest rate in history because younger people are finding lots of reasons not to hook up.
yeah. Okay, so that's one thing, is that we have not, when we talk about gender dynamics, we think that there has been the introduction of media to an extent, to technology to an extent, that has effectively taken away gender stereotypes. Is that the logical
No, I'm
conclusion?
saying that we're so busy living on our phones that it's hard to hook up.
Gotcha.
And Gen Z has lots of reasons. Well, there's hooking up, and then there's coupling up and making babies, and all that is being suppressed for various reasons. One is that people our age have all the money. Boomers have a ton of money. Gen Z, Gen X have, and Gen X is getting pretty old now too. But people 45 years and older in the U.S. have 94% of the privately held assets. That's 15 out of every $16 is in the pocket or in the home of an oldster, and that makes it hard nobody wants to start a family in a 350 square foot studio apartment that they're sharing with two roommates.
Yeah.
So that's thing one. Thing two is people freaking out about the future, that they wouldn't want to bring a kid but that I find that overblown, because we've always had reasons to freak out about the future. Now, I'd say that today's reasons are pretty persuasive, but still, if you look at past generations and what they faced, there were plenty of reasons. If you wanted to freak out and not reproduce, you could find them. And three, we're just so freaking entertained and distracted by, we grew up in the 70s, and everything was crap in the 70s except getting laid. The food was crap. The TV was crap. There were some great movies, but most movies were crap. There were no video games to speak of.
Pong.
So what you wanted to do is you went to singles bars and tried to meet people so you could have sex with flesh and blood people. Now we live in a cornucopia of porn. So if you don't want to make the effort of making yourself presentable to the opposite sex or to whatever sex you're into, you just want to stay in your basement and jerk off, there's plenty of incentive to do that.
Yeah, I understand that, Rick. And one of the things that I think about the generational aspect of it is this generation does not believe in a more prosperous future. They do not believe in their ability to be able to raise a family the way, like my father, for example. I'm going to try to add Donald back in and see, can we? Yeah.
Yeah, it's working now. I remember that something doesn't let me use Chrome, so I have to use Firefox for StreamYard, and I have no idea why. Chrome works fine for every other.
I'm sure it's some vengeful billionaire that doesn't want to let you run.
It's some sort of anti-adware thing that considers StreamYard to be an ad.
Yeah, because I'm on Chrome right now and it's letting me find, but so who knows? But in any case, what we're talking about now, Donald, while you were away, was the reasons that
I'm sure it's some plugin causing the problem.
Yeah. But in any case, we're talking about gender dynamics broadly, and we're talking about the reduction of in the developed world about the ability.
I've been able to hear, but I just haven't been able to talk. So I've heard the discussion so far.
Oh, okay, very good. So I won't bother catching you up. So what I was going to ask Rick was, I think that this current generation has the idea that their future will be less prosperous, affording children, of being able, like my father, on a teacher's salary, could have 4 kids and 2 cars and own a home. And that was in the 60s. And, that's not really possible today. We have the phenomena of double income, no kids going on, and, kind of just to make ends meet. And so there's pressure not to have the large families that were kind of expected in when I was growing up. We had 4, but that wasn't outrageous. That was a normal amount of children. And so there's pressure that way, but there's other things that are contributing. And Rick mentioned a couple of them, to the idea that we're just not having as many kids. But the idea of gender dynamics, the main thing that the point that I don't want to be lost was the effect of technology on it. People are communicating more indirectly rather than face to face now. And what is the role that plays? And is it a harmful role? Is it a beneficial role? Is it a mix of both?
Well, I want to ask both of you a question. You're talking about like the Leave It to Beaver view of America, of society. And I lived in Finland, and they have a low birth rate, but that's all over the world. That's because women, it's not a great thing for women to be dependent on husbands who might beat them and stuff like that. And it's much, much better for them to be able to go out and have their own autonomy. And so I think that the having birth control, we talked about hooking up. Well, you can hook up all you want. There's birth control. You're not going to get pregnant. I think when I teach in Finland, my classes are 50-50, and women engineers are just as common as male engineers, and they in Norway, very few, the amount of people that get married is really quite low. So women will get together with a guy, they'll have a kid, and then they'll just just divorce them or just go on their merry way. And part of the reason for that is because in those societies, they have a psychological idea that they're all part of society. So people actually have very strong social networks of people that help them and work together with them to support each other. So the kind of model that we have of the family, the 2.2 kids or whatever, and a car and a house and all that kind of stuff. If you look at it historically, that's something that was done for commercial interests. It's not a common or necessarily the only way that you could have families. And in my opinion, it very much handicaps women in general. So I see part of one of the things is women just, they want to travel. They want to have fun. They want to go to school. They want to get PhD. They want to do all that kind of stuff. And so I think
more so than
the United
guys
States
in America get educated. Undergraduates are now 60% women at U.S. college.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's definitely happening. There's no question about the fact that that's happening right now. And it's definitely, so basically what I'm saying is that when we look at gender dynamics, we have to ask ourselves the question, are we looking at it in the United States specifically, or are we looking at it globally? So when you look at the Nordic countries, they have a different model than we do. In fact, the very first countries that had female leaders, democracies that had female leaders, were the Nordic countries. Finland was one of the first, and the Finnish cabinet, well, as of a couple of years ago, was all women under 35 years old, all of them. And so, including their prime minister. So their president is a guy, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that we have to ask ourselves the question a little bit about who are we really talking about?
Absolutely. And, I know that my neighbor's daughter has moved to Sweden and is raising a child now. And the husband there is a big part of that upbringing of the child. So the husband has the responsibilities that would be, not the norm in the United States. But I'm more informed about the United States than I am about the rest of the world. So I'm going to be speaking, when I speak, mostly about the United States. But I want to just double down on what you're saying, is that the female empowerment is part of this discussion that we're having. It's changed gender dynamics, but it's also a very good thing in general, even if it has a lower effect on the birth rate overall, because they are empowered to live the lives that they choose, rather than the lives of another, a husband's life, or society's expectations of how they should live. And I would just tip my hat to all of them who have taken the power back and taken it into their hands and are making choices for themselves, and as well as society at large. And, the old stereotypes of what a woman's place is very different now than it was back when I was growing up. And I think that it's just a positive development, and want to support it in every way possible. You had your hand up, Rick?
Yeah, I want to take a look at when were we, say in America, the most gendered? And looking back over the past 100 years, in the 30s and 40s, we were highly gendered because of, men are the ones who went off to war and got killed. And during the war, women moved into the workplace, and then as soon as men came back, they were kicked out of the workplace traditionally. And then we had what you call the Leave It to Beaver life, where the mom stays home. And then in the 60s, if you look at a Playboy magazine from the 1960s, it was very rapey. It was Don Draper, Mad Men culture. About a third of the jokes in an average issue of Playboy magazine involved a man getting sex via coercion or trickery.
Yeah.
And then in the 70s, which was the 70s were the most promiscuous decade. It was the disco era, and we were coming out of the Vietnam War, leaving Nixon behind, and very hedonistic, and a lot of pressure for everybody to get laid. And we thought it was some kind of arc of the universe thing where we were just going to get hornier and hornier. And then at the same time, you had the rise of muscle bro culture, started by Schwarzenegger in the mid to late 70s, where they did a doc on him getting ready to compete in Mr. Universe. And all of a sudden, every bros were lifting weights. And that's kind of fallen away to where, we are.
It was followed by the AIDS crisis.
Well, first everybody gave everybody herpes, and then everybody gave everybody AIDS. So yeah, there were two STD epidemics going on. Then.
And if I can borrow your theme, Rick, borrow your longstanding joke aside, the only person I can have safe sex with is myself.
And that's what people are doing. That we're now like just extensions of our phones. And, if we feel like a lot of people, if they feel a sexual urge, they just like everybody. I don't know how many people, like in the 70s, you had to have sex with somebody who was hot because that's what you relied on for sexual stimulation. And now we don't need that because everybody has a spank bank, just a vast library of mental images. I don't know how many people are thinking of of getting visual stimulation from their partner while they're having sex.
Well, one of the only things I had to go on was like I have a niece who was going into college, and I wanted to ask her about gender dynamics, and she shut me down right away. So I wasn't able to get any information from her about how do the boys and girls at that age, they're becoming young adults. They are young adults, and do they relate to themselves the way that they did when I was first going to college? I don't know because I couldn't get any information from her. I guess she thought I was creepy, but the idea when I was going to college, it was on the heels of the feminine empowerment, and all the women felt that they had sexual license, and they did have birth control, and it was a wonderful time to go to college for me, and I learned a great deal in terms of respecting women as well, because they were very in your face about it, very likely to speak up about it, any perceived patrony or any received misogyny and perceived misogyny. And there was tons of it because, we were raised that way, and they kind of slapped us in the face a couple of times until we got it. And I don't know if that's still going on or if there's no need for it because the males are being raised differently.
Well, in the 70s, my friends and I, we were all just stupid. And one way to enforce gender roles is to keep people stupid. You see it in the shows The Handmaid's Tale and its sequel, The Testaments, where I think in The Testaments, the young women aren't even taught to read. They're taught needlecraft and all these right. Amish, old.
Yeah.
But now everybody knows way too much, way too early, and I think it's easier for women to see the where gender relations can screw them. And also, I think people are becoming more than just their gender and their orientation. I was watching a movie with Keanu Reeves and an actor named Matt Bomer, who came out as gay, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years ago. And I was thinking, really, okay, so he's an actor who's gay, but is he really like a gay actor? Because I was thinking what his average day is like and how much of it has to do with him being gay. And it's like, I don't know, 3%. The guy is on the phone to his agent. He's either trying to get his next role or prepping for or working on his current role, he's probably he's probably married to some guy. They maybe have kids, and how much does his life really have to do with? He's just a guy working and being married, and his life differs very little from the life of a straight actor. So I feel like now that like we're less defined by like one word descriptions like black person, Jewish person, gay, straight, in the
Labels.
I mean, maybe I'm naive or overlooking stuff, but I feel like we live so much of our lives in these digital networks now that our agency as those one word things has been is reduced.
Well, I'll state the obvious, and it's three men talking about gender dynamics. So, if I had thought about it, I would have reached out to get a female perspective on it as well.
That would have been great.
Yeah. And of course, I was procrastinating to the last minute. As you guys know, I sent you the URL very late today. And it was like, I just didn't think about it in time to do it. But maybe, we still have one more episode of Roar to do. And maybe I can find someone who is willing and able to speak about the female perspective today. Like I say, I reached out to my college age niece, but she didn't want to have that conversation. And, so that was my one effort to get a female perspective and a young woman's perspective. But that was one of the things, like, I guess it's a generational thing too, someone who's her father's age exactly, asking her about what's her relationship like with men, didn't come across well. I probably was incompetent in the way I phrased it. But my intent was genuine. I just wanted to be informed. And the idea that we're talking about can be narrowed down to like a couple. There's another person I know. He's more of an acquaintance than a friend. And what's the phrase that they use? Polyamorous or something like that, where they have multiple relationships and they're all consensual and they're all fine with it. And I don't know if that's growing as well or not. I don't have any facts.
Well, as an old guy, I get pissed at that stuff because I look at who's getting laid now. And I think of me never getting laid in the 70s. And I'll see like a dumpy couple, or in the case of polyamorous, like a dumpy throuple. And I'm like, you guys couldn't have gotten laid in 1978. You're not hot enough. But now, like I said, like with everybody's spank bank, sex is not just for hot people.
Well, how do you meet people today? I guess is another question.
Well, I worked in bars for 25 years,
right,
starting in 1980. And
right.
Bars for most of that time, maybe all of that time, were where you went to hook up. Bars functioned to help people who are not great at hooking up, hook up. It's noisy, you're drunk, it's dark. If you're bad at talking to people, it doesn't matter in a thumpy ass disco because they can't hear whatever dumb stuff you're saying anyway. And now it's all moved online, and bars or clubs are where you go to spend $20 on an artisanal cocktail.
Right. Right. I always met women at work. That was my you just surround them in a natural setting, and when you click, you click. And, so that was, I was thinking about it the other day. It was like, my first relationship when I moved to California from New England, well, I met her at work. My second, I met her at work. Third was a friend of a friend, so that, I guess that can still happen.
But you're not a lunkhead. So you were able to demonstrate value at work by being like smart and fairly normal. So like over time, somebody could see, well, this person looks like, not risky, a good bet,
Safe. That's what I've been told.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
And a reasonable person might gravitate toward. But if you're a lunkhead, if you're a muscle bro who will very quickly in an office situation demonstrate a lack of value by sounding like an idiot or behaving like an idiot, that guy needs to go to a nightclub in a tight shirt and dance. And that was my deal. Like, I could dance the heck out of a woman, and then when we both got sweaty after dancing 3 songs in a row, I had no idea what to say, what to do.
Okay, so you didn't have the entire alphabet. You had the ABCs down, but
I just had the one move of picking a Prince song because it's got a strong beat that white people can find.
Right. Yeah, right. Rap was good for that too. So, how do people meet today other than online? I don't know. Certainly in college, you have the natural ability to do that. At work, you do. Maybe church, maybe that's where people are meeting now. I don't know.
People are younger people. Now, you hear various things, but on average, younger people are walking away from a religion because they're a little disgusted with what older generations have done with it in America.
Well, they've already, in most of Europe, they've walked away many decades ago. So it's not, we're one of the most religious countries in the world, US. But still, in the Bay Area where I live, Christians are a minority in San Francisco Bay Area.
I met my wife at a Jewish singles dance, which it's not exactly going to church, but everybody was there because they belonged to a particular religion. But I went there because I'd had a bad breakup months and months before, and I decided to get out of my rut. I had to do something stupid and pointless once a week, and that was my I knew it would be a stupid thing because I'd been to those Jewish singles events before, and the Jewish singles population in Denver, Colorado was kind of depressing.
And the music didn't have that beat that you can tune in.
No, actually it did. We took third place in the dance contest. So
all right. Yeah. So there are ways to meet, and I think one of the things I did a different show where I interviewed the woman that my best friend, he got remarried, and he got remarried online, and by not online marriage, but he met the woman online and through these dating apps. And what he did, he was very systematic. He's in the professor emeritus at Stanford, and he said, "I'm going to go on so many dates and in such and such a time." And that's exactly what he did. He was very systematic about it. He went out and met different women, and this one woman, and he clicked, and they ended up getting married, and they're actually a great match for each other. They're wonderful. So they met each other online, and I interviewed the woman, and she recommends the online dating apps highly for women because she said that some of the dates she went on, she could tell right away this wasn't working, but if she didn't put herself out there and go on these dates, who is she going to meet? And she did meet the guy that she ended up marrying. So
you're talking about what we've been talking about is intent. You have to putting yourself out there, making the effort, going on a certain amount of dates. I think there are fewer people acting with intention among the younger generation. I don't know. I mean, you can't generalize across a whole generation, but I would say that statistically, maybe fewer people are acting with urgency or intent.
Because marriage is not defining them maybe the way that they used to, as we talked about.
And the Republican people in Elon Musk and Republicans in government are talk a lot about what are we doing about the baby crisis? How can we urge people to couple up and reproduce? And the solutions they offer are half-assed.
Yeah.
But you were talking about in Finland, there's a massive in the Nordic countries, the Baltic, all these little countries, massive safety nets, massive help to the tune of many tens of thousands of dollars a year in help for parents. And Trump, what he did is he gave parents $1,000, basically a savings bond, a $1,000 account that'll grow to what, $3,000, $4,000 by the time the kid is. That's just nothing.
Well, you could get groceries for a month anyway.
Yeah. Right now, until inflation spikes. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. For a little, my wife and I were separated. We actually got divorced and then got remarried. So I was single for about 10 years, actually. And then we got back together about 8 years ago or something. But during the time, I dated some amazing women. That was kind of fun, really. And I met my wife working at a bookstore. One of the women I went out with the longest, really liked her. We were at a wine bar, which is, the kind of place you're talking about. That's kind of exactly the opposite of a place with loud bass playing and things like that, and cheap drinks. I mean, it's the other end of the spectrum. So she was there with this other guy, and I started talking to her, and we started talking about Nietzsche. And she got my contact information, and about a week or two later, she calls me and she says, I'm kind of embarrassed. I've really never called a guy before. But so mostly, I think really, if you look at the women that you probably meet, intentionality's not quite as common as serendipity. And and I think that putting yourself out there is not a matter of necessarily putting yourself out there to meet women or men. If you're a woman, it's more a matter of putting yourself out there and being involved in your community I met a lot of new people and made a lot of friends because I've been on the civil grand jury. And I met fascinating people, and those are the kinds of things where I really make new friends and make connections. And I don't think that'll really change too much. I did have some online dating experiences that were good, and the way I do it is, I think everybody, most people do it that way. Is you don't go out on a date when you first meet each other. You go out to have coffee, and and you go Dutch. And so you decide whether you actually want to go out on a date or not. And, you wind up getting there and you meet this woman for a half-hour coffee date. And like 3 hours later, you're still talking. And you go, well, okay, I'd like to go out with you, But I think
somehow you make that connection, however you can do it. And I think the online connection may be as good as the in-person connection. And that's at least what this one woman was telling me. But then the in-person thing, like you're saying, a cup of coffee, something neutral, something,
Right. You only know what you know about a person on, online. Right. People are, we have personas that we create for ourselves online, but you got to get them and look if
but
they're
this
really.
Is something we can talk about. The three of us as men, is there a diminishment of what the man is supposed to be nowadays, or has been there a change in that? I've been reading about this, so I'm not imagining it. It's something that's men. Their traditional role has changed, and they don't know what to make of themselves, what they're supposed to be, what's the definition. Growing up on John Wayne movies, you had one definition of a man, but what's your definition of a man today? Sensitive, like a Hugh Grant kind of man, or
I think men throughout the 20th century define themselves by their jobs. And the job, the modern job is crappier than the Leave It to Beaver job of the 1950s, and that you can be the breadwinner, is, you're not winning that much bread driving for Uber, and
Right.
I don't think that many men are bringing home the bread by modeling on OnlyFans. And we've just got a bunch of crap jobs currently. I mean, not for everybody, but for a lot of people.
And that can eat away at your self-perception, your self-worth.
Yeah, and also in the eyes of other people.
Right. Yeah.
I think I'm just going to say, while I was going through this period of being single for a while, I came across a book in a New York Times book review or something called The Game. Have you guys ever heard of that book?
Yeah, I read it. I thought it was, I was already with a partner, but I was interested in the psychological technology of the pickup artist.
Yeah, and so basically, I looked at that, and I looked some other books along the same lines, and eventually I saw this one guy, and he said, "Look, take care of yourself. Don't be a slob. Earn a living. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. If somebody asks you to do something and you say you'll do it, actually do it." And so basically and women will be attracted to you. And that's exactly what I found. And, vice versa. I mean, there's weird things where the girl gets women allegedly, I don't know how much that's true, but they like the bad boy guitar player or something like that. And and I think maybe young women sometimes do that, but by the time they've had to, most women, I think, at least strongly entertain the idea of having children. And you don't want a partner that's going to, push the whole thing off on you and not, I mean, women often complain about their husbands are more like children than their children are, and so you really don't want to. You don't want to. So I don't think that's changed in a lot of ways. I think that fundamentally, if you're a responsible person that is honest and trustworthy and all those kinds of things.
Yes, I agree with that.
A lot more attractive than you are if you're not.
So there's a hurdle that men have to get over with dealing with women, is women's skepticism of men. And it's probably pretty high at this point in history. It's kind of built into the culture. But when I was in college, women didn't have that skepticism, but they got ruined for men anyway by actual in-person experiences. Women would go to frat parties as naive freshmen, and then they'd have a terrible borderline, sexual abusive encounter with some frat boy asshole. And for the next 2 years, they were very skeptical of men because they'd been raped or near raped by some jerk who got them drunk and then attacked them. I think that there's maybe less of that now, but more of a general.
Oh, no. There's still plenty of that. Did you see that thing that was going around on the internet a couple of years ago where they asked women, would they rather feel safer meeting a bear in the woods or a man they didn't know in the woods? And almost all of them said they'd rather meet a bear.
Yeah. Well, that's sad. But, the thing I was getting at is, like, with the sense of empowerment by women, has there been a disempowerment of men? And
if you listen to pundits, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But pundits, you can be a pundit and say anything you want. I mean, it's gotten to be like actually the most common thing, to just make up whatever you want and claim it's a fact. I mean, our president does it many times a day, and so you listen to those Rogan and those kinds of people. Yeah, they've got all this whole thing about how men are, they're looked down on. One of my favorite ones is the alpha males, which is actually not the way wolves actually act.
Right.
But werewolves in fantasy novels act that way. See, so the alpha, so I think they're
the werewolves. Yeah.
But they run around and what is it? It's looks maxing. You mentioned Schwarzenegger. You've heard of looks maxing, right?
Yeah, this is a guy who gives himself better cheekbones by taking a hammer and smashing his face, and
right, and they work out all the time, and the whole point is to look as good as, well, I mean, it's sort of poor person's plastic surgeries.
Yeah. Or if they're rich, like what you want is the hottest thing on your face for a guy is big, strong, wide jawbones, that the Batman jawline. And yeah, you can get your jaw rejiggered to be more spread, and like they'll do that stuff.
Wow.
So I think a lot of these incels do it to themselves. I mean, I've asked a lot of women what they think about men who think they're alpha males, and they're just like, "Oh God, spare me! I can't
get over yourself." Right. Right.
Well, that whole pickup artistry thing, it's got a lot of sleazy behavior, like, you never give a compliment to a beautiful woman, because then you sound like everybody else.
Right.
But behind the BS is the idea that if you want to get a girlfriend, is you got to make yourself presentable. You have to make yourself the best version of yourself. You have to be interesting. You have to, have some decent grooming. You have to work on yourself.
Well, what about self-confidence? That seems to be, if people are confident, and we minimize that by talking about the alpha male who's the most confident. But, if everyone has a certain amount of idea of their own worth, which is what I work on all the time with people that I work with, is their self-worth. And, if you get the feeling, you don't need outside affirmation that you're worthwhile as a human being. You only need it from yourself. And then when you affirm yourself, then all of a sudden it's a magnetic effect that you start to attract people that are like you, giving off the same vibes. I think the hippies were right. It's all about vibrations. And, if you're giving off the right vibrations, you're going to surround yourself with, they're going to be attracted to you. And if they're wired that way. So then the synchronicity comes into play. When you're that way, giving off those vibes, you're attracting other people who are giving off those vibes or are attracted to those vibes. Then all of a sudden you find yourself with like-minded people around you. And then it's natural.
But you just said people around you. If you're on your phone and you're not around anybody, then it's hard. Like street crime in general in the U.S. has dropped by 50% since the 90s. And I would argue we started throwing more people in prison, which probably helped a little bit, was unfair. We have more, but I think the main thing is it's hard to have crime when nobody carries cash and nobody's on the street. If everybody's doing all their business on Amazon and eBay and that, there are, you'll get phone, people will try calling your phone to scam you, but
right.
It says spam, and it's hard. So we are more divided. We're less around other people.
Yeah. So there's a disconnect that I've been thinking about in today's society, and whether it's a generational disconnect or, like my mother-in-law had a sewing circle most of her life, where the women get along and bitched about their husbands and, that kind of stuff. And, but, they had a community. And, how do we form a community in today's society? Because I found that a community is important part of my life now, getting to around people that have similar values to us, and we can talk about the things that are bugging us or whatever, but you get not judgment but support and compassion.
So if
And
we wanted to have people have more babies, so our friend Sasha, whom we know from other shows,
yeah,
he says we should have a national draft again, that it makes men men, that, he spent 18 months, 2 years in military service, which all our fathers did in the Korean era. And A, that's not going to happen. But B, if we had national service for young, again, a thing that almost certainly won't happen, if everybody had to spend 2 years working in some way to benefit the country, teaching, building, you take people in their early 20s and throw them together in a mutual enterprise, then people would hook up. They would see the value in other people and they would hook up. But again, that's not something that's going to happen. There's no sense of crisis about it. We're kind of more selfish than the people of the 1940s. But yeah, if we... Oh, one more thing I keep wanting to bring up, the decline in testosterone. So microplastics are antagonistic to testosterone in your body. So there's been a steady decline, I guess, in the average level of testosterone in the men of the world. And I don't know if that is changing how men act.
it's interesting. The microplastics, that's another show entirely. But they are ever present, and we're consuming them in ways that the people of the past did not. And the effects that it has on our digestive tracts and which affects our moods and all of that kind of stuff. It's a very interesting thing. But to get back to gender dynamics, I think the way to express what's going on in today's society is there are barriers to the commonality. Like what you're saying is a potential solution is everybody goes to work after college or high school or something, and for the country, for the community, and does something together, and they meet each other in natural situations, and that kind of thing, where there's no pressure. Like in a bar or something like that, there may be pressure to be, witty, and I learned after many years that being clever is not the same as being wise. And wisdom is to be to be preferred. But
I don't know. I'm a wise ass, and it kind
me
of
too.
works for both.
Yeah. But I don't think that's what the yogis mean.
Well, a clever comment might buy you a 30-second window to say your next thing. And I could open the window, but I could get through it. I might do something that was, I could see interest in the woman, and then I could watch the interest fade as we interacted more.
But if you're there putting together peanut butter sandwiches for the poor, over and over and over again, you end up talking about everything.
I'm going to tell you a magic trick for anybody that's listening, any man that's listening to this, if they want to have better relations with women, listen to. Don't try and dazzle them with your brilliance. Take an interest in them. I mean, that's just not just a women-men thing. That's just a human communication thing. In fact, one woman I dated for a while, we went out for coffee and I said, well, how could I help you? And she says, I fell in love with you right then, because nobody had ever asked me that before.
Right.
Yeah, and also if you're just asking questions of the woman you're with, that gives you less opportunity to say dumb stuff because she's talking.
Yeah. Well, and it's not a sinister trick. It's actually a good way to be with other people, to mindfully listen.
That's what I mean. That's not a gender dynamic thing necessarily, but I'm putting it in that context. I will say the confidence thing is kind of funny because during that period, I'd go to a lot of meetups, and it's a great trick. I recommend this to everybody for networking. Is I'd go to a meetup that I'd like. After as it was winding down, I'd walk up to the people who were putting it on and say, I really like your meetup. How could I help you? Could I help you with this meetup? Every single solitary time they'd recruit me instantly, and I'd wind up on the board of directors of whatever organization. It was that simple. And then the other thing is like I'd go into this room, be a room full of technical people, and there's always fewer women at those kinds of things than there are men. But and I see that like the most beautiful woman in the place was sitting by herself in the front row, because nobody, and I'd walk up and sit down right next to her. And then I'd always ask a question or two that was a little, not just stroking them. And after the thing broke up, I would literally have women lining up to talk to me. And so the confidence thing is huge.
And there is a gendered difference in speaking with women, which is that I took a lot of women's studies in college, mostly because I wanted to get a girlfriend. But that when a woman tells you stuff, you have to listen, and B, you don't take it as an opportunity to tell them what to do. That's not what people in general, and especially women, want. When a woman tells you about her day, it's not an opportunity for you to tell her how to fix her problems.
What
women want is somebody.
That's true with anybody, because it's the line between helpful advice and criticism is so blurry that if you give somebody unsolicited advice, there is a very high probability that they'll take it as criticism and they won't like it.
Yeah. What you want to say is, oh, that sucks. I can't believe that
relate to
that
them.
would,
right.
Yeah.
And you can ask,
you
can ask, just ask them, well, how did you feel about that? Do you have any idea of what you're going to do about this situation? And then if you feel that you might have some helpful advice, you ask them. You say, something occurred to me while you were talking, and I don't know if it's any useful or not, but would you mind if I shared it with you? You have
to like dip your way in. You can't just hit them with.
You ask. So it's not unsolicited.
That's very sensitive of you, Donald. I think, then no wonder that you had all these women flocking around you. I think that's sensitivity, but I also go back to the idea of self-worth. If you don't feel like you're worth it, when you're meeting someone else, that you don't feel attractive, you don't feel there's any reason this person would take an interest in you, they probably won't. And if you feel like you have worth, you have something to offer, and you generally believe that about yourself, that will come across, and people are attracted to that quality.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel that I have something to offer, and I feel that there's no reason why anybody shouldn't talk to me. I mean, it was partially the way I was raised. I came from a long-term California family, and so a lot of my ancestors that I track were all like, I had a mayor of Boston, and various people founded towns all over. So I always grew up thinking that I could talk to anybody, so I just don't. It doesn't even worry me to do it. So
I grew up with little criticism and a little praise and a lot of criticism, and so everybody grows up differently, but you can, as an adult, change the way you feel about yourself.
It's true. It's very worthwhile too. It's a great thing that you do, James, helping people with that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. My mom would always try to give me dating advice, and she couldn't understand why I didn't have a bunch of dates in high school. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not my mom was cute with enormous boobs, and I'm like, you have advantages that I didn't have.
All right, so we're going to wrap up.
Wait, I have one recommendation. There's a show about gender dynamics that is pretty funny called Rooster, starring Steve Carell, which is about a guy in his 50s who never been to college, ends up teaching at a college, and his various entanglements. And I don't know if somebody in their 20s would like the show, but it's a nice, gentle introduction to how things might kind of be right now.
Okay, interesting. And I've got it recorded, but I haven't watched any of it yet. So I'll put it higher on my priority list.
It's less angsty than a lot of modern TV.
Oh, it's not a Woody Allen series.
It doesn't make you despair.
Oh, good. We're working on uplifting. But Donald, do you have anything else? You've been a great guest today. Rick and I both appreciate it that you've joined us.
Well, I always enjoyed talking to you guys. You've got a lot to offer, so I'm grateful that you allow me to come and hang out with you.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a way to compliment people. The people like that stuff.
Yeah,
thank you. And you're a great guest.
There you go. All right, we're ending on a high note. So I'm going to take you guys backstage. I'm going to say goodbye to our viewing audience. Bye, Mom. And we'll talk to you next week.
I hope both of them have a really nice day.
Bye for now. All right. Okay, so this was the show, episode 11 of Roar. And the basic idea behind Roar is to find your voice, speak up and speak out. And especially in today's world where we're trying to preserve our democracy and we were afraid to speak up. Well, this is a show that's going to encourage you to do that. Find your voice and use it. And use your vote when it comes time to vote for the people that are trying to make the best values, their own and the country's. And our country's values, we used to export them, and now we're importing czarist values from other countries that are trying to be more authoritarian. And we want to speak up and speak out against that. So thank you for joining the show. And I'm James Eade, and I will see you in the future as soon as I can get the show